Welcome into the Triple Play Fantasy Football Show. Hit that intro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome into another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Football Show, a proud member of Fantasy Points and the Fantasy Points Media Group. We're at the end of the fantasy football season. That doesn't mean the goodness stops here. Make sure you guys go to fantasypoints.com and use code TriplePlay22 to get 10% off all the tools over at fantasypoints.com. If you're playing DFS, that's all season, baby, going into the playoffs. So you can use these tools to help when you make your lineups. If you're in the fantasy championships, of course, this can also help you. They have many great statistics that you can't find anywhere else. They have rankings. They have everything you need all in one place. So check out fantasypoints.com. D. Mendy with you guys tonight, joined by the Doc. I think this might be the first show. It's just me and you, Doc, tonight. But I got to ask you to lead things off here. At all your fantasy leagues, are you alive in any of them?
So I'm in the finals of one league, and then the Guillotine League that you and I did. I'm in the finals as well. And for those that aren't familiar with the Guillotine League, I highly recommend you check it out. Basically, the teams are stacked at the end. So it's a really, really fun and definitely strategic approach that you have to have.
It's funny you say strategic because teams can approach it very differently. So I was in the final four, and my team lost as fourth place, got my money back. But I used pretty much almost all my fab on Davante Adams once he got out there, because I thought he could change my team. And I was pretty much almost every single week one of the lowest 2 or 3 scores. So I said, I need that game changer right now to keep me alive. And that's what he did. He pretty much, there were some weeks he single-handedly kept me out from losing. But the thing that's the downside of it is people like you and then our friend Urgin, who's in the Triple Play Discord, you guys didn't spend your fab because you guys were consistently towards, I'd say, the middle to upper tier. So you could kind of wait it out a little bit. And that ended up working well for you guys in the end, because when people like myself, Breton, and many others that were still there, we couldn't spend. So you guys got to pick up the top free agents every single time. And eventually that cost me and Breton a spot in the finals. So it's, I think, very
Justin
different.
Herbert cost him a spot.
I had Justin Herbert last week too.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is a fantasy fraud. It's interesting because, I was twice the second to last score, and the concept of the guillotine is the lowest score gets removed, the players become free agents, and then you bid on them for fab. But just kind of being meticulous with it. But yeah, the teams are stacked in the finals. There's a lot of great players in free agency. It's weird, seeing like Leonard Fournette's a free agent and he's not even getting thought of. Justin Fields is a free agent and nobody's scooping him up because there's only just one quarterback needed.
You're playing Patrick Mahomes this week, so I think you had Fields, you had Hurts and Mahomes, right? Yeah.
Of course I'm playing Mahomes.
Yeah, so that's the one thing with the guillotine is, like, if you're consistently one of the lower scorers every single week and your team isn't as good, you probably have to spend a lot of fab earlier on. If you have a stacked team to where you can sit pretty for a while, you can just hold your fab until the end. That's kind of what Doc did. I drafted a lot of rookies like Garrett Wilson and Christian Watson and Drake London, and Jamal Williams ended up being like my only consistent running back because I lost Rashad Penny in that league. So like I was stacked at receiver and I needed running backs and my quarterback was inconsistent. So it's just one of those things, again, like it depends on how you draft, how you can spend your fab, but it's definitely fun.
Highly recommend.
So you're in 2. Do you feel good about both of them in terms of you winning?
No, I feel like I'm going to lose in both of them, actually. It's people that I'm playing my roommate in one league. And so, yeah, the loser's not going to be able to look the winner in the eye for the rest of our rent.
That's true. Yeah.
What about you? You in the finals of any?
I'm out of all of them. I lost there was 3 leagues I was still in, and I lost all 3.
Ooh.
To be honest with you, I had probably one of the best fantasy football regular seasons I've had across all my leagues in terms of where I finished. And then just in the playoffs, my team periodically just pooped the bed. In the first round, a lot of my teams did really well. Just a few of them dudded out. And then the semifinals, all of my semifinal teams threw up duds. It was ridiculous how bad my teams were. And it just stinks. I tweeted it out earlier. One of those leagues, I was the number 1 seed, my home league that we were in, obviously, Doc. And my team, literally the week before, was the highest scoring team, and I had a bye. And then
you're speaking to a mirror. David and I are brothers. We're the 1 and 2 seed. We're the top 2 scorers, top 2 when we have our bye. And then our teams just poop the bed the next week.
It sucks. It really sucks. And, obviously it's like in the moment you're annoyed. And I tweeted out this morning and I said, it's just like the pain when you're the number 1 seed and you don't even make it to the finals where you just have to win 1 game. It's just like you put in 3 months of work during the season to get there. And then just as of 1 bad week, your team is gone. That's what's kind of sour with me with fantasy. And that's why I've been a little bit more leaning towards sports betting is I'm like, at the end of the day, you spend so much time just to have heartbreak like that. I really like how Scott Fish does his playoffs where, you basically, once the playoffs start, you take your season average and then they just drop off with your fantasy playoff performances. And that really does reward the best team, I think, at the end of the day. And you could do the head-to-head matchups during the regular season. And once the playoffs start, you get your 8 teams that are in, and then you take your scoring averages of those 8 teams, and then you just drop off each time.
I'm a proponent of first place in the regular season, the President's Cup winner getting some form of payout for the long sample size. It's interesting you bring this up, David. They say football is a game of inches. And when you relate it to fantasy football too, and there was a matchup in a league yesterday that I'm in, when Justin Herbert got stopped at the half-yard line on that QB sneak and Austin Eckler punched it in, that won her the game. And if Justin Herbert gets those 6 points instead of Eckler, she loses. Mm-hmm. And because of that half inch, and you just think about every single play or, plays that can add up where it's literally decided by an inch of that matchup or one play or another. It's such a catch-22. You hate it when it happens against you, but when you love it, it's the most favorable thing in the world.
It really is. In the same token, like in our home league, I'm playing against one of our friends, Kevin, and I look at our box score and we're projected near the same to finish. And I leave, my our grandma's place with a man-on-man side, and I see that it's going to be close, and then I get home and I see Greg Dulcich catches a touchdown, a meaningless touchdown, and gets hurt after and him catching that meaningless touchdown where I was like, there's no chance he's going to score because the Broncos at this point, they just run the clock out. Not only did he score a touchdown, but Matt Gay got another field goal, which was his kicker. Matt Gay finishes with 19 points. Unreal in that point in the playoffs to have a kicker get 19 points against his defense. And Greg Dulcich finished with like 13. And the two, Matt Gay and Greg Dulcich, pretty much went from his projection to being like around like 115 to shooting up to 130. And that just pretty much, in my eyes, I was like, I'm done. Like, there's no chance. And it's just interesting. Like, sometimes it's just like when everything is going bad against your team, when you feel like their team is going off or you're destined to lose, stuff like that happens. And it's just very hard to, that's why fantasy is fun, but like the best team doesn't win enough like it does in baseball, where it's like a week long, or some people, again, they're like, some people were saying in the comments on Twitter, they were like, once you get to the semifinals, it should be, the top scorer after 2 weeks gets the championship. There's so many different variations where if you have a fluke week, like this past week for many people, that you don't get penalized for if you had season long success.
The thing about fantasy, Shane Zylstra is the top scoring tight end. Mm-hmm. And, someone like Jalen Hurts that rode you to the championship or, to fantasy playoffs is now out. And, it's such a week by week matchup. It's such a week by week game. It's something, once again, we love, but we hate. Don't read the comment. Don't read the
I
comment.
gotta read the comments. I need help with my cheer. All right, go ahead, Porter. Didn't you win last year in that home week
He
too?
won
I
like
think
2 years ago.
it was the two. I think Kevin and him won the last two. No, Bart won
Yeah,
last year.
they
Bart won
do.
last year. So these two of the last three are in the championship, and they both don't deserve it. Me and you should be in there.
Agreed. David, when talking about lucky, we'll transition to our wow moment.
Yeah.
Are the Vikings having the luckiest season in NFL history when you think about the games that they've won? Down 33-0 at half against the Colts and won that. The game against the Bills where Josh Allen fumbles at the end in the end zone. Greg Joseph, who has been below average this year, at least every time I watch him, kicks a 61-yarder, and they outscore the Vikings by 6 or the Giants by 6 in the final quarter. Against the Lions, they have a game-winning drive. I think I heard this from Kyle Brandt, that Kirk Cousins has the most fourth quarter comebacks of any QB throughout this point in the season in NFL history. I have to double check that, but isn't that crazy, the season they're having?
Well, their point differential is ridiculous. Last time they were actually negative until about a couple of weeks ago. Now they're back in the positive. They just win. They've been winning every close game. And yeah, I don't think we've seen a team ever do it the way they have, where they're undefeated in single score games this season. Like that normally doesn't happen. But sometimes it's just whether it's the coaching, you have obviously a little bit of luck going your way. And I don't know if that will carry into the playoffs. It's kind of funny because they have the second best record in the NFC, but many people probably consider them the fifth best team behind, or fourth best team behind the Eagles, the Niners, and the Cowboys. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It
Like,
really is.
I think people can see that it's not something that you normally can bet on. So it'll be really interesting. I mean, the Vikings still have a chance to get the number 1 seed if they win out and the Eagles lose out. So they're going to be playing. And if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, it's no guarantee the Eagles can win out either.
It really isn't. I mean, it can go to anyone right now. And the Eagles lost Lane Johnson also. Like they're really getting hurt at the wrong time. And, just like we're talking about right now with fantasy, it's a best of one and not always the best team wins. It's the same thing in football. Not always the best team wins. And now only the top seed gets a bye. So that's really valuable.
Very, very different. Porter does add best flex option available this week. Pick one. Dobbins versus Pitt, Singletary at Cincinnati, Thielen at Green Bay, Mostert at New England, Pickens at Baltimore, and Moss at the Giants. I'm going to eliminate Mostert right away. Did not look good last week. And with Teddy Bridgewater under center, the threat of the pass isn't going to be nearly as much. And also in New England where it's really cold and the Dolphins have struggled, I don't think I want anything to do with Mostert.
I would go Singletary.
Singletary at this point of the season always seems, he just had a great week last week. Singletary towards the end of the season always comes on, and it's crazy. Are you tempted at all with Dobbins though? Because Dobbins has been balling.
I'm
too.
not. When's the last time the Ravens and Steelers played a high scoring game?
I have to look at their most recent head-to-head. Well, talk up for a second while I pull that up.
So in my opinion, I mean, Dobbins, it's still somewhat of a split backfield. Gus Edwards got a decent amount, I think 11 carries last week. George Pickens, I mean, do you trust Trubisky? And for me, I guess I'm just eliminating the others. Do you trust Kenny Pickett throwing him the ball? Zach Moss hasn't been efficient on the ground at all. And the Colts scored 3 points, so they didn't even get a touchdown yesterday. I would be a little bit tempted with Thielen at Green Bay, with Jair Alexander if he does shadow Justin Jefferson. But TJ Hawkinson had 13 targets last week. Actually, no, 16. So he might be the number 2 option. Dalvin Cook is always a threat to get in the end zone. I think Singletary has the highest guaranteed volume out of all of them, and especially rolling in the finals.
Yeah, and the last 4 meetings of the Steelers and Ravens, the highest point game in that has been 39, 20-19 Steelers. So 4 straight matchups, 39 or less combined points. So it's definitely been tighter recently. Singletary seems like a great play. That's probably where I would lean to. And then, but Porter's a Steelers fan. He does like Pickens. So if you want to go down swinging and saying it, you have your guy in the lineup. I understand wanting to go down with your guy with George Pickens. I think Doc and I are going to be on Team Devin Singletary. So that's where we're at. But appreciate you checking out the show, man. You're obviously Porter's actually a really good fantasy player. Finishes pretty highly in our league of record here. So yeah, I trust you'll make the right call at the end of the day, my man. Doc, though, because we didn't have a waiver wire show yesterday, let's talk about some waiver wire pickups really quick. And I want you to tell me if they were a player you would actually consider starting, or at this point in the year, it's not worth it. Even if like earlier on in the season, you would maybe pick them up as a stash. The guys I'm going to read you, I would start them in the championship or I would not. Okay.
Okay.
Jahan Dotson of the Washington Commanders, who's had 15 catches for 235 yards and 3 touchdowns on 24 targets over his last 3 games. Would you start him in the fantasy championship?
Who are they playing?
They are playing. It's a very good question. Let me pull up the
schedule pulled up right here.
I believe they are playing.
They are playing Cleveland in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I would start him as a flex option. I think you can feel a little bit more confident than you did a couple weeks ago. He's been getting decent target share. I think the uncertainty is who plays quarterback. The offense looked a lot better under Taylor Heineke, but then he got benched against the 49ers. And
right now I'm hearing Wentz is right now where it would stand today.
Yeah, it's a projected 40.5 over under, which is one of the lower ones we've seen. I think if you have better options, you take that. But I don't hate Dotson.
What about Romeo Doubs, who right now he had basically 6 quarters where he's been healthy over his last 2 games, and Christian Watson suffered a hip injury against Miami, missed the entire second half, cost people a lot of money with their bets. But he was targeted 6 times in that game, which actually led the team. Once Watson went out, 36 yards. But Aaron Rodgers is going against the Minnesota Vikings, who allowed the most receptions and receiving yards to opposing wideouts this year. Dobbs could be stepping into a really nice role here if Christian Watson doesn't play. I know you're not interested if Watson's in, but if Watson's out, would you start Dobbs this week?
I wouldn't. Green Bay has been really run heavy in a lot of games. They've been utilizing Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Alan Lazard is still going to be the number 1 on that team. Aaron Rodgers has spread the ball around to throwing to tight ends, Tanyan, Mercedes Lewis, Josiah DeGuara. I don't think you can base and the last time they played the Vikings, they scored 7 points. So I just don't think that you can do it based off the stat. I think you have to do what Romeo Doubs has been. You'd start him if he was doing something like Dotson has been showing you, but I don't think you can do it based on the opposing defense.
What about the New York Giants receiving duo of Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James? They combined for 23 targets, 16 receptions, 179 yards, and a score. I think Isaiah Hodgins is the one I'm looking at. He has 31 targets over his past 5 games and looks like he's more of the big play threat in terms of he's also getting a lot of touchdowns. They're going up against the Colts this week. Would you play Hodgins or James?
I would play Hodgins over James. Like you said, he's the deep threat. They play the Colts, who just gave up 20 points against the Chargers and honestly should have been more if Justin Herbert didn't have a couple turnovers. So, and for the Giants, it's a must win. You know, they want to get in the playoffs. I think they'll try and stop Saquon Barkley, and hopefully that means one-on-one. And with a deep threat like that, it just takes one play.
What about touchdown machine Juwan Johnson, who has 10 run zone targets over his last 14 games? 7 of his 36 receptions this year have been touchdowns, and they're going against Philly this week, which kind of in the middle of the pack against the tight end. But Juwan Johnson seems like as much a sure thing to get in the end zone. If you need a tight end this week, would you roll with Juwan Johnson?
I wouldn't. His last 4 games, his targets 2, 6, 2, and 4, and he has 8 catches. 3 of them have been touchdowns. I just don't think that's such a boom bust. I can't do it. I mean, if you're swinging for the fences, sure, but the best case scenario, he gets, like 1 catch for 11 yards and a touchdown.
Or you get 2 touchdowns like he did a few weeks ago.
He did, yeah.
Touchdown machine, man. I like wanted to bet on that, but I didn't do it.
I mean, I think it depends on what type of fantasy manager you are. Are you swinging for the fences and the high ceiling guys? Or are you looking for, and depending on how your roster constructed, are you looking for kind of more safe floor guys?
I mean, what's safe floor guys at this point? If once you get past Kelsey and Hawkinson and Goddard,
for the rest of your team, if you have like Hodgins and that's like, oh, that's the guy I'm going to roll the dice on, that's boom or bust, or if you play Romeo Doubs.
well, let me ask you this: would you rather play Mark Andrews or Mark Andrews with Tyler Huntley or Jawan Johnson?
I would play Mark Andrews.
Would you rather play Dalton Schultz or Jawan Johnson?
I'd rather play Dalton Schultz.
And you've been seeing what they've been putting up recently, right?
I would take Jawan Johnson over Gerald Everett, though.
What about, would you take Tyler Higbee or Jawan Johnson?
Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee's just coming off a 2-touchdown game himself.
Yeah, but I feel like you can never expect it back to back. I feel like he got the game out already.
And imagine if you said that after the first Jawan Johnson game.
Yeah, but then he hasn't had 2 touchdowns since he had twice this season. But they were very.
I think it also depends. His value is significantly lower in PPR. One game with 5+ catches this year. I think if you're playing in half, if you're playing half or non PPR, I'm more okay starting him. But if you are playing in a PPR league, I would not.
Jarvis Landry on IR, baby. I'm Jawan Johnson this week. You're not Jawan Johnson. I'm Team Jawan Johnson.
You want to? Hey, betting God, you want to make a bet on Jawan Johnson getting a touchdown this week? I'll give you odds.
I'm not going to bet anything because there's a lot better odds he doesn't score.
That's why I said I'll give you the odds.
How are you going to give me the odds?
We can talk about it off camera, but
I mean, if we're making a bet on the show, then they have to know what the odds are.
Okay. If Jawan Johnson scores a touchdown, I'll pay you $8, and if he doesn't, you pay me $5.
No, that's not even close to being worth it.
Okay. Well, I tried.
It will just be a friendly bet. I think Jawan Johnson gets in the end zone this week.
David's so confident in Jawan Johnson.
I will probably throw some money on it.
$8.
I will probably throw some money. I'll probably throw
25 on various bets.
I'm glad Porter agrees with me. That's terrible. Yeah, it literally is like if you're trying to make it so it's an even bet for both of us, it's not.
Well, I'm all ears if you want to counter.
It would be like you pay me 10 and I pay you like 250. It would be like where you basically get a quarter, or like Porter's at 8-1. So I said 10 to 250. But
I don't really want $1 if I win.
All right, so just for record, I want to pull this up here. So the Eagles versus the tight end. This is getting to a fun conversation. Eagles versus the tight end this year. They have given up a total of 3 touchdowns against the tight end.
Okay.
No touchdowns against the tight end since week 9, and not giving up more than 4 receptions in a game to the tight end since week 13. It's been really 3 straight games of 4 receptions on 5 targets. So they have definitely been a tougher defense against that position. But you know what? I just think it's time. They're due.
Well, now
Jawan
since
Johnson,
we're talking
baby,
about
lock it
it,
in.
well, now that we're talking about it, Jawan Johnson played on 27 snaps on Sunday, which was 50%. Adam Troutman, backup tight end, played 40 snaps, which was 74%. So he's not even getting the most snaps.
That happened earlier this season too. I'm not worried about it.
Who would have thought that Jawan Johnson would be what we talk about most on this show?
He's a touchdown machine. He deserves to be talked about. What about Tyler Algier, who has looked like a beast over the last few weeks? Outtouched Cordero Patterson 22-9 and outgained him by 86 yards. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry this season, and he's caught 15 of his 16 targets, going against an Arizona defense that's actually been giving up a lot of points to the running back. I'll pull up those exactly in a second, but they just allow Latavius Murray and Pierre Strong to destroy them. Are you starting Tyler Algier? Because I think I might.
I am. 22 touches last game, 18 the game before that. He's had double-digit carries the last 4 weeks. And this is with Cordero Patterson back in the picture. And being in the local channel watching the Ravens-Falcons game, he had some really great moves. He had a hurdle. Made a lot of defenders miss on certain plays. He just looks the part. And we talk about rookies that make impacts later in the season. Christian Watson, James Cook, Tyler Algier. These guys have young, fresh legs. You know, Algier was a healthy and active week 1. 10 carries, then 6. He's really getting the bulk of the work. So I feel confident starting him. I'd say he's an RB2.
Low end RB2, just for reference for how bad the Buccaneers have been recently against running backs. Over their last 3 games, 16 carries for 104 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns against
I
the
don't know
Patriots.
why the Bucks are relevant in this. They're playing the Cardinals.
No, I'm saying the Patriots. Patriots running backs versus the Cardinals in week 14, 16 carries for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Broncos running backs versus the Cardinals, 31 carries for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. This last week against Tampa Bay, 28 carries for 114 yards and a receiving touchdown. They've literally, the last 3 weeks, been destroyed by running backs. So I expect to keep that going against the Atlanta Falcons.
Dude, let me ask you one. On a confidence meter, how confident would you feel starting Cam Akers?
I mean, it would depend what else I have, but probably a 6.
That's crazy when after we saw week 1 and him demanding a trade that now he scores 3 touchdowns.
It's pretty wild. Zach Moss interests you? Had
No.
dominated
Nope.
snaps and touches this
Nope.
past week.
Nope.
Looks like the guy there.
Nope.
Going against the Giants. Yeah, I don't really want him either. Chuba Hubbard, who averaged 13.7 touches over the last few games, 77 scrimmage yards over his last 3, and had 12 carries for 125 yards against Detroit.
I think he is a flex option. I'm somebody that I'm playing might play him in the championship, and I'm a little bit worried. The 1-2 punch between him and Foreman really seemed to work. I think obviously the Panthers don't have as much faith in Darnold because if they did, they wouldn't have traded for Mayfield to begin the season. Mm-hmm. So it seems like they're just really kind of going with the ground game. They still have a chance to make the playoffs, and I think there is less of a chance that they turn the ball over. I mean, the over-under for the game is 39. Tampa Bay's only favored by 3 at home. So I think
their
that's
run
how
defense
they
is legit, though. I'm scared of their run defense.
James Conner just shred him up.
Yeah, but I don't feel I'm not starting any Panthers running back personally in the championship. Let's talk about quarterbacks real quick. Brock Purdy, your guy. You starting him?
I can't imagine a situation where you would start Brock Purdy.
You're going against the Raiders. Literally one of the worst matchups or best matchups for quarterbacks.
He's still a game manager. Love him. Love what he's been doing, but I don't feel comfortable starting him.
So, Doc, next year, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy in that order for the 49ers quarterbacks. Garoppolo is not there.
Oh, yeah. Can we say now that Jimmy G's a system quarterback and the win-loss record is completely flawed now that Brock Purdy's undefeated, literally being Mr. Irrelevant?
I tell you, Brock Purdy's going to make himself some money.
In a perfect world, Trey Lance is our starter. Brock Purdy's our backup.
Or when I heard someone, I forgot where I heard it, they said, have Zach Wilson go there for a 6th-round pick and have him as your 3rd stringer, and then just have him just work in the system for as long as he needs, and then you can develop him if you need him down the road, that you could pretty much get him now, and it wouldn't be no pressure on him. He could learn from one of the best in the game and maybe salvage his career. Would you do it for a 6th-round pick?
I would do it. I feel like a team would trade for Zach Wilson to be their backup and just groom him like that, but I could be wrong.
Mike White against the Jets. I'm sorry, against the Seattle Seahawks this week.
No, I know that he finally got medically cleared with 3 fractured ribs. It's going to be a pain tolerance. He might not have the arm strength to throw the ball as deep as it was before. And maybe just one hit that he takes the wrong way and they put in Joe Flacco. I can't do it. I need players fully healthy.
He's top 300 passing yards in 3 of his 6 games he started, averaging the Seahawks are giving up 7.4 yards per attempt, which is one of the worst in football. I'm not opposed to starting Mike White if you need a quarterback. I think he could be a sneaky good play.
Geno Smith, assuming Tyler Lockett is out this week, facing the Jets.
No, not playing. Geno's kind of fallen flat on his face recently. It's definitely not the same team it was a few weeks ago, so I'm not starting Geno. Some defenses you can pick up. Jacksonville going against Houston, so that speaks for itself. The Giants are going against the Colts with Nick Foles, who just threw 3 picks and had 7 sacks. The Giants might be one of the better plays this week. They might be my top pickup as a defense, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
All right. Anything else, Doc? That's pretty much all like the relevant pickups. I guess we don't really get into betting this week because at this point, I think people want advice for their fantasy championships. If you are looking for betting, though, make sure you either DM the account at Triple Fantasy or me at DMendio2, and we'll do maybe a little betting show sometime this week. We can fire up some bets or something
Just
like
follow
that.
David on Twitter. He's been hot recently. I'm just mad I haven't thrown more money on it.
How much is Kevin really throwing $100 on all of the
Yeah,
picks?
so a friend of ours has been that's a unit for him. He throws 100 on every single bet. So you've been making him a lot of money.
How long has he been doing it on my Smash the Over props?
Probably since one of the beginning ones. I mean, he's not afraid to throw hundreds like it's nothing.
Do I get to see like any percent of that money?
No, I made him 450 in a night live betting at the Orioles game, and I didn't see a single dime of it. So
maybe like a nice like take me out to dinner or something. Like
yeah, I even suggested that too. Didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean it's just fun. Betting that makes the things a little interesting, especially if you're out. Like I'm out of all my fantasy leagues now. The only one that is still going is the XFT league that Scott Fish and Des Bryant run, and I still have a shot to win that league. I have to win out over the last 2 weeks, and then the other guy that's ahead of me needs to lose both his games because he's 1 game ahead of me and has a couple more points scored. So that's the only league I still have a chance of winning something at this point. But yeah, that's why betting all in right now. Hoping to make some money this week. Should be good. Doc, anything else to say to people before we get out of here?
No. Good luck in the finals.
Good luck in the finals. If you guys need any last minute start sit decisions, you can hit up Doc at AAA Fantasy. Hit me up at DMendio2. I'll be putting out a start sit thread, I'm sure, a couple days this week to answer some questions. But Doc's very knowledgeable too, so make sure you guys message him as well. Good luck in the fantasy finals for Doc, for D-Mendy. We're going to make like a bread truck and we're going to haul these buns. See y'all next week.